just a little information about this church. Behind this church is a parking lot. And in 1927, that parking lot was where 5 black families owned homes. It was a street back there by the name of Bauer Place, B-A-U-E-R. And in 1927, a white developer said, I want that land to build homes for white people. So, with the support of the city of Evanston, those black families were forced to pick their homes up and move them over by the high school. They were not given any kind of compensation for that mistreatment, inhumanity. And the white developer never built those homes. In 1932, this church was built. The denomination, they had nothing to do with what happened to those black families. So in 1932, this church was built, and I learned about this story about those black families in 2020 after George Floyd was murdered. One of the descendants of one of the families that was forced to move, he was given an interview. His name is Isaac Sutton. Many of you probably know him here in Evanston. And Isaac was telling the story to Gaynor Hall from WGN. He was telling the story about how his grandparents were forced to move their home from Bauer Place to over by the high school. And the reality was that was a great example of wealth being taken from a black family. And it was 5 black families that were forced to move, and I heard about it in 2020, and on December 28th, 2022, I purchased the church. Yes. My intent was, thank you very much. I had first asked if I could just simply buy the parking lot where the crime had been committed, and I was told no. So after being told no, I said, well, I'll just buy the entire church. And so I bought the church, and people said, what are you going to do with the church? And oftentimes when people hear that I own a church, they say, what, you moved from being, I'm a retired professor, you moved from being a professor to now being a preacher? And I said, well, my mother would be really happy to hear that, if she was still alive, because that's what she always wanted. But I said, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I want to do something that honors those black families that were forced to move. And I want to make this church something that has meaning to the black community in Evanston, the black community in Chicagoland, and the black community nationally, as well as any other group that has an interest in using the church. So with that, I've made the church available to any not-for-profit organization that wants to use it for an event. They use it for free. We have, since I've owned it, we host a monthly jazz concert here, led by Donovan Mixon, an Evanstonian who brings his friends from Chicago. And so we have a free jazz concert here every month. There was a fundraiser for the for the Evanston NAACP in February that was outstanding. We also hosted around this time last year at Fisk University Choir, Sherman United Methodist Church. They normally host Fisk. They reached out to me, said, can we do it at this church because the auditorium is larger. This has a seating capacity of 235 seats. I said, absolutely, sure, absolutely. And so they hosted the event here. It was standing room only. It was 300 people here. It only seats 235, and the windows were literally sweating. And then I also give it to the Black Women of Evanston. They host a monthly workshop, wellness and health workshop downstairs. And I don't call it the basement because there are windows, as you can see. I like to call it the lower level or the garden area. And so when Fran reached out to me and asked me, could she host an event here, my immediately answer was yes, absolutely, and it was a joy for me to be able to say that. Therefore, I would like to close by welcoming you to this event, welcoming you to this beautiful church, as well as I want to close by making you aware of something, and that is, if you go out into the parking lot, you'll see 5 spaces out there. And those 5 spaces are numbered. And those numbers on those 5 spaces are the addresses of the black families that were forced to move in 1927. Have a great evening. Thank you all for coming.